今から録音しますので、もし自分の顔が映りたくない場合は、自分の顔を消して見ないようにしてください。名前ももし変更したいんだったら変更してください。始めましょう。言語系学会連合の2020年年度公開特別シンポジウムへようこそ。シンポジウム組織委員会の海ゆり子さん、白川純子さん、ウェイン・マルカムさんと、そして私を代表として、本日は、ご参加いただきありがとうございます。私の名前は、ロバート・シャートランです。福岡県の久留米大学外国語教育研究所の教授をしています。私が JALT 全国語学教育学会の副理事長であり、今年は UALS 言語系学会連合運営委員会の委員長になっています。今日の午後3名の非常に興味深い講演者からの声を楽しみしてください。本日はシンポジウムの司会はウェイン・マーカム先生です。今から英語で同じものが繰り返します。Okay, I will repeat the same thing in English. Welcome to the United Association of Language Studies 2020 Annual Special Symposium. On behalf of the Symposium Organizing Committee, Yuriko Kite, Junko Shirakawa, Wayne Malcolm, and I, we are happy that you could join us today. My name is Robert Charton, and I work as a professor at Kunimi University in Fukuoka Prefecture at the Institute of Foreign Language Education. I'm also the vice president of JALT, and in this role, I have been selected as the chair of the UALS Steering Committee this year. We hope that you will enjoy the talk this afternoon from three very interesting speakers. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Wayne Malcolm, the chair of the symposium today. Okay, Wayne, it's up to you now.
Okay. Can you stop sharing your screen? Or we can, yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. As Robert said, my name is Wayne Malcolm, and I am Director of Program for JALT, and I will be your MC, so to speak. And first on the bill, we're going to have three speakers today. The first speaker is going to be Hisashi Noda, and let me give a brief introduction to Noda. After that will be Charles Browne, and then Hiroyuki Obari. And then after the speakers, we will have a panel discussion with all three speakers. So during the presentations, you can hold your questions or you can put them in the chat. And then during the panel discussion, we will have plenty of time to ask those questions, and people will be able to ask questions as they like. So first, we have, starting us off is Hisashi Noda. Professor Noda is a professor at the National Institute for Japanese Language. Dr. Noda specializes in Japanese linguistics and Japanese language education. He has served as chair of the steering committee and the secretary general of the United Association of Language Studies. That's UALS, the organization that is putting on this symposium. He is also currently the vice chair of the steering committee, and he's going to be speaking about 10 years of UALS and what we will be looking forward to in the future for UALS. So without further ado, Noda Sensei, onegai shimasu.
はい。 それでは画面共有します。はい、大丈夫でしょうか。
はい、OK。
はい、ありがとうございます。今日のシンポジウムは、言語系学会連合が行っているものです。この言語系学会連合ができて、大体10年ぐらいになりますので、今日は、この学会連合の活動を、振り返って、それから今後の展望を示すという、ことをさせていただきます。はい、まず言語系学会連合の活動、皆さんあんまりご存知じゃない方もいらっしゃると思いますので、この活動について、お話ししたいと思います。言語系学会連合の目的ですが、一つは関心や目的を共有する多くの言語系の学会が連携してより高い水準の学術的研究を目指していくということです。2つ目は言語に関する正しい知識と理解を一般社会に浸透させ、学術的な言語研究の重要性を発揮していくということです。次に言語系学会連合の組織ですが、漢字学会というのが5つあります。1年交代で事務局を担当しています。日本言語学会、日本語学会、日本語教育学会、英語学会、そして今日いろいろ、お世話をしていただいてます全国語学教育学会です。加盟している学会は現在言語系の37学会です。詳しいことは言語系学会連合のウェブサイトを見ていただきますと、いろいろなことが載っています。次、言語系学会連合の、運営についてですが、運営委員5名、監査委員2名、事務局委員が数名、これは5つの漢字学会から選出されています。それから収入ですが、加盟学会の年会費、合計約85万円によって運営されています。漢字学会は5万円。他の学会は会員数によって1万円から5万円を負担しています。支出はイベントの開催費、それからウェブサイトの管理費、運営委員会、意見交換会の開催費などです。それから情報公開ですが、予算決算を含む運営委員会、意見交換会の議事録をウェブサイトで公開しています。次、言語系学会連合の連携に関する活動ですけれども、加盟学会による、意見交換会というのを毎年開催しています。今までどういうことを議論してきたかといいますと、学会の法人化の問題とか、会員減少に対する対応策だとか、事務局の運営方法、外部委託をするときの方法など、それから大会予行種の電子化、オープンアクセス化、オンラインによる大会運営、聴覚等の障害を有する会員への支援について、それから学会誌の電子化、オープン化、オープンアクセス化、こういうことを情報交換してきました。それから加入学会カレンダーというのがウェブサイトにあります。ここには各学会の大会とか研究会の情報を載せています。他の学会がいつどんな活動をしているかが分かるようになっています。次、言語系の学会の連携に関する成果ですが、研究倫理に関するガイドラインを制定しています。個別の学会で制定するのが難しいガイドラインを制定して、 言語系の学会の標準と、しています。それから学会が抱える問題についてのアンケートを実施してきました。例えば、ウェブ上で公開された博士論文、これを学会誌に投稿しようと思ったとき、できるかどうか。つまり、ウェブ上に公開されていると、すでに公開されたっていうことで二重投稿になるっていうふうに判断する学会と、それは二重投稿にならないっていうふうに判断する学会があるので、どういうところがどう扱っているかというようなアンケートをしました。両方のタイプの学会があります。それから例えば学会誌の査読を会員じゃない人にも依頼しているか、依頼する場合にはお金を払っているかどうか、こういうアンケートもしてきました。それから言語系学会連合との共催制度っていうのも作っています。加盟学会が主催する公開のイベントに学会連合から補助金を支給しています。それから一般社会への発信に関する活動もしています。一般向けのイベント、今日のこのシンポジウムもそうなんですけれども、例えば2010年には公開シンポジウム、日本語の将来。2013年度、これは言葉カフェ、自分の方言、日本の方言、もっと知ろうよ、語ろうよ。2014年ですが、言葉カフェ、言ってほしい言葉、欲しくない言葉。2019年、公開シンポジウム、英語教育のあるべき姿を目指して、例えばこういうことを行ってきました。毎年やっています。それから声明の発信ということもやっています。教員養成系人文社会科学系学部の廃止転換を求める国立大学改革について、これは言語系の学会にも影響が大きいということで、例えば発信をしてきました。次、言語系学会連合の今後の展望ですが、まず、ウェブサイトのリニューアルということを今やっています。情報発信力の強化のために、今、新しいサイトに移る準備を進めています。うまくいけば、この春、あるいは夏頃までには、新しいサイトに移って、そこで今までよりも、いろいろな情報が見やすくなった、そういうサイトになると思います。それからイベントの活性化を今後進めていけるだろうと思います。例えば公開シンポジウム、言葉カフェなどの開催回数を増やすことができるだろうと思います。今年度もオンラインによって今日のシンポジウムも行っていますので、これまで対面でやっていた時よりもお金がかからなくなっています。それでこれまでは年1回しかやってなかったイベントを、もっと2回あるいは3回とできる可能性が出てきているということです。それから言語系学会連合と加盟学会との共催あるいは協賛による公開シンポジウム。これはそれぞれの37学会それぞれが企画するものですけれども、言語系学会も協力してやるという、こういう活動も一般向けのイベントとして開いていけるだろうと思います。それから各種機関団体との連携強化です。まず日本学術会議。これはもともと言語系学会連合は日本学術会議からの進めでできた連合です。いろいろな分野で学会連合ができていたんですけれども、言語系はなかったもので、こういうのを作ったらどうかという働きかけがあって作りました。それから他の学会連合、いろんな分野で理系も文系もありますが、そういうところとの連携ですね。それから海外の学会との連携、それから地方自治体などとの連携強化、こういうことも進めていければと思っています。 最後になりますが、言語系学会連合からのお願いです。まず、一般の方々へということで、言語系学会連合のイベントなどに参加して、言語への理解を深めていただきたいと思います。周りの方々へも言語系学会連合のイベントについて伝えていただきたいと思います。それから加盟学会の方々へということで、協賛、それから共催、こういう制度による一般向けの公開イベントをたくさん開催していただきたいと思っています。それから意見交換会などを通じてさまざまな情報やご意見をいただきたいと思います。これからも言語系の学会をまとめて外に発信していくために言語系学会連合でいろいろなことをやってきますので、皆さんどうぞご協力よろしくお願いいたします。ちょうど大体10周年ということで、私からご挨拶させていただきました。どうもありがとうございました。
Okay, let's give a virtual hand for Noda Sensei. Thank you very much for introducing UALS and telling everyone where we've been and where we're likely to go in the future. Thank you so much. Okay. So to carry on now into the next, getting to our first plenary speaker for the day, I'm going to introduce Dr. Charles Browne from Meiji Gakuin Daigaku, Meiji Gakuin University. He's an expert in vocabulary and reading research in online learning. And Dr. Browne has over 30 years of experience in teacher training and as a consultant to the Japanese government and local governments. Today, he's going to be talking about vocabulary development in the age of ERT. ERT, I believe, is emergency remote teaching that's taken upon us this past year during the pandemic, and specifically introducing the Ngsl project. So that's what he's going to be talking about, and I'll let him get into that. Take it away, Charles.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Wayne, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here with you today. Can everybody hear me okay? Is the mic working? Good? Okay, thank you. Let me turn on my PowerPoint, and then I'll begin. Okay, let me just get the Zoom screen. Okay, so yes, I'm a professor of TESOL at Meiji Gakuin University, and I've been in Japan for a very long time, about 35 years, and started on the MEF program, was the national chairman of the JET program, worked at literally hundreds of junior high schools and senior high schools back in the day, and became very aware of some big problems with English education way back in the 80s. And even 30 years later, 35 years later, I'm still working on those problems, trying to help with those problems that I noticed back then. And probably the three main ones, one which I won't talk about too much today is the lack of systematic teacher education, teacher training. But the ones that are more centered on my talk today is especially the way vocabulary is handled in the classroom in Japan, and also the way reading skills development is handled in the classroom. And I've spent, especially the past 10 years, working very hard on something that we call the NGSL project, the New General Service List project. And we've created dozens of open source free resources to help teachers and students and content developers to attack the problems of vocabulary development here in Japan. The good news is, even though we started this 10 years ago, because of my background in online learning and the way I look at vocabulary development, a lot of the tools we've developed and a lot of the resources we've developed have really actually fit very well with the special needs we have over this past year. You know, the needs of, you know, what I'm talking about here is, you know, emergency remote teaching. And, you know, as of last year, because of COVID, you know, literally 100% of all classes by all of us, junior high, senior high, university, and so on, had to be conducted online. And I think most teachers and most students were not ready for that. That's why we call it emergency remote teaching rather than just online learning. Online learning is when you have time to plan, when you know what you're doing, and you can do it systematically. You know, I think what we've been fighting over the past year especially is making that quick transition to something that we're not used to and not comfortable with. And that's why it's called emergency remote teaching. I think that the fear that many people have about online learning is that technology is going to replace teachers. And I think that's just not the case. Online learning, I've been working in that area for close to 30 years. And it's very clear that technology will never be able to replace teachers. But I think it is true that teachers who are comfortable with and know how to use technology in a pedagogically sound way will get ahead, will do better, you know, I think that is the future. I mean, that's something that we've learned over the past year, especially. For me, my own personal take on online language learning after many bad experiences, back in the day when I used to run a chain of language schools by Sony Corporation called Sony Language Labs, back when I was working with Obari sensei at Aoyama Gakuin, I had many experiences where the schools that I was working with focused only on technology. They spent 100% of their budget on hardware and fancy things and never really thought about the pedagogy, what needed to go on in the classroom. So really over the past 15 years, everything I've done, pedagogy has been the first step, you know, thinking about what needs to go on in the classroom before we start buying hardware and software. So we'll talk about, I think that will be another theme that we'll talk about. So for me, I think that the two main problems that I've struggled with, that I've seen everywhere, is that Japanese students, number one, don't have enough vocabulary, and number two, the vocabulary they do have is actually the wrong vocabulary for their needs as second language learners. And the other problem is that the reading materials that they have is far above their level. And we'll get into all of these things a little bit as we go along. Now, in terms of vocabulary, one thing to realize is that the English language is just enormous in scope. The largest English dictionary is called the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary. And if you go onto their website, I think they're still quoting about 600,000 word families in the largest dictionary of the world. So that's a lot of words. But the good news is that native speakers, you know, which is usually the target. Most Japanese say, oh, I want to speak English like a native speaker. Well, the good news is that native speakers don't know or don't use all of those 600,000 words. In fact, the average native speaker only knows somewhere between 25 and 30,000 of those 600,000 words. So only about 5% of the language. And this means that about 95% of English, you really don't need to study, because they're just low frequency words that never occur anywhere. So 30,000, only 5% of the English language, sounds like really good news. But the problem is that even that here in Japan, even where English is required in elementary school, junior high, senior high, and most colleges, even after 12 or 14 years of studying English, Japanese students don't have anywhere near the native speaker 30,000 words. So a couple of studies are showing somewhere between 2,000, 2,300. I've seen a few other studies more recently that are showing slightly higher numbers, but still very, very low, you know, much less than 10% the size of a native speaker. So this is a big problem. But 2,000 still sounds like a lot of words. So maybe 2,000 is enough. Well, in fact, it isn't. And here's just a very, very quick sample of what it looks like to try and read something where you don't know all of the words. If you had a 1,000-word vocabulary size and all of the words that you knew were the highest frequency words of the English language, you would get about 75% coverage for the text. That means in this particular text would be about 15 missing words. And if you try and read and guess the missing words, you probably can't, because 75% is just not enough to be able to read easily. I think most of you would agree. Yeah. It's pretty hard, right? Now, if we go to what typical Japanese student has about 2,000 words, although they don't know all of the high frequency words. So this is actually an overestimate, but at 2,000 words, you would normally get about 85% coverage for a regular general English text. So you can see instead of 15 missing words, now there's only 9 missing words. It's a little bit easier to read, but still not enough. 85% is clearly not enough to read easily and smoothly and guess the missing words from context. But look at what happens at 95%. At 95%, now there's only one missing word. If you knew all the words on the page except for one, you pretty much can read and understand the text. And very often you will be able to read and guess from context. So what we have is a number of vocabulary thresholds. Below 80%, reading is almost impossible. At 90%, that's the very minimum. That's the point where about half of the students in your class will be able to read and guess from context, and about half will still be struggling. 95% is the level that a lot of us talk about these days, because 95% is the point where almost all learners can read and guess from context. And in the extensive reading circles, when we talk about extensive reading and extensive listening, very often, more recently, Paul Nation and others have been talking about 97 or 98% as a target, because that's the level where you can read for pleasure, read easily, read quickly, and read for pleasure. So the problem here in Japan is that we have what's called a backwash effect from university entrance exams. Students should be studying the highest frequency words, the first 3,000 to 5,000 words. Those are really important words that occur everywhere. That's what they should be studying. But because of the effect of entrance exams and textbooks, students are not studying these high frequency exams. Japanese students are studying, even in high school, extremely low frequency words. All of the words like torment and exasperate and digress, those were taken from a very popular book for high school students in Japan for preparing for the high school entrance exam, the college entrance exam. So they're studying very low frequency words, and they're doing it at the expense of high frequency words. Japanese students have very significant gaps in their knowledge of high frequency words, and this causes a lot of problems. Okay. Now, the second big problem that we have in Japan is that the reading materials that Japanese students are working with are too difficult. Now, if you know the 2,000 most frequent words of the English language and you try to read a Time magazine article, you'll get somewhere between 80, 81% coverage on average. So this is not bad, but it's still not enough. We said 80% is not enough to read and guess from context. But if you were to go to a daily like the Japan Times, a newspaper, the coverage goes up quite a bit, up to about 85%. The newspapers are easier to read than magazines. And if you were to try and read a book, a novel, say like a Harry Potter, you would get about 90% coverage. Even though with our word list, you even get a little bit more than that. But for native speaker materials, if you know the first 2,000 most frequent words in the English language, 80% for magazines, 85% for newspapers, 90% for many novels. But if we look at Japanese high school textbooks, only 75% coverage, which is very odd, because these high school textbooks are for non-native speakers of English who are not very good at English. And yet the vocabulary load is more difficult. Oops, hold on a second. I think, okay, so let me jump ahead here. So why is that the case? This, as I said, has to do with the backwash effect. Japanese university entrance exams, if you do an analysis, and one of my ex-students, actually from Aoyama Gakuin, Keita Kikuchi, did quite a bit of research on this and found that many of the Japan's top universities were very difficult. English passages were very, very difficult, more difficult than native speaker materials. So the red line is 80%. Anything above the red line would be the coverage you would expect for native speaking materials. So below the red line means it's harder than native speaker materials. Nagoya University, Keio, Waseda, Sophia, all of these universities are significantly harder than what we see in native speaker materials. So these problems was the starting point for what I've been working on for the past 10 years, and that is to try and help students to get around the difficulty of these texts and to be able to understand English independently of needing dictionaries or teachers. So basically what the NGSL project is about trying to create shortcuts for students. We know that native speakers know about 30,000 words. That's not a good target it's not a reasonable goal for Japanese students, because even after 12 years of study, they only have 2,000 words, impossible to get to 30,000. So what we're trying to do is to create very short lists, much shorter than 30,000, but that would get above that very critical 90% level where they can read and guess from context, where they can work without dictionaries and without teachers. And so, as I said, 600,000 words in English, 30,000 known by adult native speakers, 90,000 is the minimum. And what we have for the new general service list is a 2,800 word list that covers 92% of the words that students are likely to meet in most books, magazines, or newspapers. And actually for TV shows and movies, the coverage is usually much higher than 92%. So we'll go into that also in a minute. The new general service list is based on a corpus that we got access to called the Cambridge English Corpus, which is a 2 billion word corpus. And we were able to pick up the subcategories that we thought would be most useful for second language learners, and took about a 273 million word sample, and were able to come up with the new general service list. And the new general service list, I should say, although it is designed for the needs of second language learners, in other words, it's designed to teach them the words that are most likely to meet in their daily life. So if they go outside of the classroom and they read a newspaper or a magazine, or if they go outside of the classroom and they try to ride a bus, or if they go outside of the classroom, they try to watch TV or a movie, these words are the words they're most likely to meet in their daily life. So that's the precise purpose of the new general service list project. And as we can see, we're getting very high coverage in those kind of situations. But the good news is that in addition to being very useful for daily life, there's recent research that's being done on the new general service list that's showing that the list is also very, very useful for test English. And test English in Japan, as we know, is not actually, very closely related to English proficiency. So, for example, the Japanese National Center exam, a research article that came out last year showed that the new general service list covers more than 95% of all of the center exams published between 2015 and 2019. So with only 2,800 words, we're helping students with general English for their daily life, but it's also very, very good coverage for the national center exam. Another study that was published this year, 2020, just a few months ago, showed that in addition to showing very high coverage on the center exam, they got 95.26% coverage. They also looked at the Japanese senior high school entrance exams and found that the first 1,000 words of the new general service list got covered 98% of the high school entrance exam. So that's very good. That means it's showing very good usefulness for test English as well as real English. My own master's students, this is a few years ago, we had put on a conference at my university called Vocab at Tokyo, and two of my master's students were looking at the new general service list, and we were looking at coverage for listening materials. There was an article by Norbert Schmidt and Tom Cobb and Marlies Horst and Diane Schmidt that theorized that the threshold for listening is a bit lower than for speaking. And they theorized that we should be able to get to 95% coverage with less than 3,000 words for listening materials. So I asked my students, I said, okay, well, here's some online corpus tools. Let's take a look at the new general service list, and whatever your favorite movie or TV show is, let's find out what kind of coverage the new general service list is giving. Can we get, this article says we should get to 95% with less than 3,000 words. The NGSL is 2,800. So 2,800 plus 200 words of your choice, can you get to 95%? And what we found, one of my students was very interested in Star Wars, and he made a corpus out of the first Star Wars movie. And he found that even though it was science fiction, a very specialized kind of English, the NGSL covered a very nice 91%. And then just with adding a few keywords, science fiction words, about 70 of them, he was able to bring the coverage up to 95%. And for another student really liked the TV show Friends and made a corpus out of the first season of Friends. And he found that the NGSL just by itself gives 95% coverage of Friends, which is not surprising because it's very general English, and the new general service list is supposed to be for general English. But just with a few more keywords, about 40 or 50 new keywords, he was able to get up to 98%. So in other words, my graduate students were able to find empirical support for this position that we can get to 95% with less than 3,000 words. So the NGSL is having real good coverage for real world materials as well. So what about after the NGSL? What do you do after the NGSL? Well, a lot of people argue, and this is including Paul Nation, that the next step after you learn the high frequency vocabulary, which is about the first 3,000 words of English, the next step should be focusing on mid-frequency vocabulary. And mid-frequency vocabulary occurs basically between the 3,000 and 9,000 word level. And this is a reasonable goal, but you can see, I took some samples from various bands between 3,000 and 6,000. There's quite a lot of words, and they're quite difficult words that you wouldn't actually meet in your normal daily life. Now, since it takes 12 years to get to 3,000, just to get to 9,000 would take another 25 years. So it's not really the best thing for most students. So what we have here is the idea of special purpose vocabulary. So instead of studying just general mid-frequency vocabulary, another 6,000 words, if the students have a specific purpose, if they have a real focused reason for studying English, often studying a special purpose vocabulary list can be very helpful. And this is really another focus of the new general service list project. So what we've done is we've created 7 different lists. And I should mention, if I haven't already, all of these lists are open source. All of these lists are free. You can download the lists and the tools from my website, which I'll introduce to you in a few minutes. But we now have 7 different lists. The yellow one is the new general service list. That's the daily core vocabulary. And I believe that for almost every second language learner, that has to be the first step, because these are the words that occur in daily life everywhere. But if you have a specific purpose, then often the second step should be learning the special purpose vocabulary. And we've created word lists for academic English, Toeic English, business English, fitness English so far, and we'll be creating others as well. And I should also mention, we've recently released a young learners English list called the New Dolce list. That was just released a few weeks ago, and has very, very high coverage. And we've also released a nice list of 700 words of spoken English as well. I'm not going to introduce all of them today because that would take up all of our time, but I will introduce one or two of them just so you get an idea. So in the case of academic English, this is basically academic English is the English that occurs especially at universities. So if a Japanese students were, for example, to graduate from a Japanese university and then go to do graduate study in the United Kingdom or Australia or America, another English-speaking country, at university, there are certain words that are used much more often than in general English, and they're quite difficult words that only occur in academic settings. So our academic word list is designed to try to identify those words. And we published this as well in 2013, along with the NGSL. And what we have is a 283 million word academic corpus. And the NGSL actually gives not such good coverage. It drops from 92% down to about 86% because it's academic English, not general English. But the 960 academic words that we've come up with bring it right back up to 92% again. And the corpus, the academic corpus, just to give you an idea, is made up of 250 million words from the Cambridge academic subsections, but also we took 3 million words of oral English, oral academic English, because lectures are very hard for second language learners. Academic lectures are very hard for second language learners. So we took 1.5 million words from British academic lectures. That's the base corpus, and 1.5 million words of American academic spoken English from the MyCase corpus. We also created another subcorpus of 100 top-selling academic textbooks. So that's the makeup of the academic word list. And what you can see is that the new academic word list and the new general service list actually provide a bit more coverage than the old general service list and the old academic word list. So the old general service list was Michael West, 1953. The old academic word list is 2000 by Avril Coxhead, and they're both tremendous lists. But we wanted to try and see if we could get better coverage. And as you can see, the coverage figures are quite a bit higher for our two word lists. There was another study that was done about 3 years ago by Hendy and Sheepy, and they wanted to see if the academic word list would give good coverage for academic journal articles in ERA. And they created a 5 million word corpus of over 18,000 difficult abstracts from various fields, and found that the NGSL and NAWL got 90% coverage for all of those abstracts. That's pretty good. That's, sometimes we get a little bit higher, but 90% is still pretty good. So a very useful list. Another list that we published is the Toeic word list, the Toeic service list, the TSL. And Toeic is a very high stakes exam in Japan. Many students must take it as part of their high school or university studies, and also for getting jobs. And so in I think it was 2015, we published this list, which was based on a 1.5 million word of Toeic English that we created. And we got an incredibly high 99% coverage for just 1,200 Toeic words plus the NGSL. And if you notice, the NGSL jumps up from 92% to 94% for Toeic English. So that means that the NGSL is a very good first step for anybody trying to get a good grade on the Toeic. But if you just add our 1,200 Toeic words, you're getting very, very high coverage. And the Toeic test, as many of you know, had some changes about a year or two ago. They first introduced in Japan and Korea, and then worldwide. And we wanted to make sure that our Toeic list was working with the latest version of Toeic. And we used the 8 official practice tests published by ETS and made a small corpus out of that. And we're very happy to find that we're still getting almost 99%, 98.5% coverage for just the 1,200 Toeic words. Okay, so I talk a lot about modular learning, and this is just one example of the modular learning. And this would be the idea of teaching the NGSL plus the Toeic service list. And what we've done is we've broken it up into bands so that it's easier to teach and easier to test and easier to work with for the students. And just summarizing some of the things I've said, just the first 2 levels, the first 1,000 words, the NGSL gives 99% coverage for the high school entrance exam. So level 1 and level 2 would be a very good target for younger learners. Teaching levels 3 through 5 would help students preparing for college. And certainly the Toeic service list would be a very good help for people preparing for the Toeic exam. And this is the approach that you would take with any of our word lists, NGSL plus Toeic or NGSL plus academic word list or NGSL plus business and so on. So we've tried to create a mix and match approach so that we can meet the needs of many learners and many schools and many programs. Okay, so hold on a second, wrong direction. Okay, so this is just a quick summary of all of the word lists that we have right now. And you can see that we're all of the coverage figures are 90% or above. All of the word lists are very short and small. You can see and download all of these lists from our website, which I will show you in just a moment. Let me just get this forward. Okay, so as I said, all of these word lists and all of our tools can be accessed and downloaded for free from our new General Service List website at newgeneralservicelist.org. And what you will find there is just a tremendous number of tools. This is what we've been working on just as hard as the word list. And I think that all of these tools, all of the lists and all of the tools work really well in this era of ERT. When you think about the idea of flipped learning, the flipped classroom, this was something we were talking about even before the COVID pandemic, the idea of taking lectures outside of the classroom and instead assigning that as online learning so that there's more time inside the classroom for discussion, critical thinking development, and classroom activities. That's what the flipped classroom is. Normally what's happening is that you're lecturing in the class and then just giving homework afterwards. It's too, in Japanese, ippoteki. I mean, we don't want to be just lecture oriented. We want students to be involved. And so I think a lot about the new General Service List in the same way, about vocabulary learning in general. Vocabulary learning is a kind of a solitary activity. And it's not something that we want to spend a lot of class time on. So if you have good online resources for studying vocabulary, then this is something that can be assigned outside of the class, which would leave you more time inside of class to do other things. And so what we've done is, if you go to the website, you can see in the center the free NGSL word list resources. You can download all of our word lists with frequency data, in Excel format or CSV format. We've also taken the trouble to write English definitions and in many cases Japanese definitions as well for all of the words. And we have a very cool new resource, which I'll show you in a few minutes, which is the video concordancing glossary. In addition, we have a number of free learning resources, including online flashcards. We utilize the Quizlet website and the Memrise website. We have our own free flashcard apps called NGSL Builder, NAWL Builder, also another one called Word Learner. And then we have free vocabulary tests for the NGSL and the NAWL. I'll talk about that in a moment. And in terms of research and content creation, we have some very nice corpus-based content tools like OGTE, Vocab Profile, and AntWord Profiler, which allow you to analyze texts and simplify texts to level. And there's also a research library where we try to keep track of all of the articles that have been published using the NGSL list. I gave a TED talk on NGSL many years ago. That's up there as well. And there's a bunch of other information there for you to look at. Here's a screenshot of the NGSL T, That's the NGSL test. NGSLT stands for NGSL test. This is a test that was developed by two Japan-based researchers, Phil Bennett and Tim Stokel. Very fantastic, active researchers. They created tests for both the new general service list and the new academic word list. They've published many, many articles on these tests. They have some of the highest reliability and validity figures of any vocabulary test out there, and they're free and they're downloadable from my website, and they will help you to identify where your students' strengths and weaknesses are. So for example, on the right-hand side, you can see NGSL levels 1 through 5. That's by frequency band. And what you would normally expect to see is NGSL 1 be the highest and NGSL 5 be the lowest, because NGSL 5 is the lowest frequency. But in this case, the test results show that one of my students has very high knowledge of level 5 of NGSL, but low level of NGSL 4, which is about 1800 to 2300 frequency level. And so what we've done based on these test results is we've created flashcard stacks in Quizlet based on these bands. So based on test results, students can go immediately to Quizlet and begin to study the words that they don't know. So this test works very well as a diagnostic and a placement test if you want, if you're doing vocabulary for placement. So a very good test. Our word Learner app also has placement and achievement information, testing materials in there. You can use that as well. I wanted to show you very quickly some screenshots. This is just to show you that the NGSL is up on Quizlet. It's also up on Memrise. Both are free flashcard websites. Quizlet has more than 7 different kinds of learning activities, including 2 games. So it's more than just flashcards. It's a very nice website. Memrise doesn't have the games. It's only flashcards. But one thing that Memrise has that Quizlet doesn't is that it gives you the option to personalize your flashcards, the learner to personalize their flashcards. So for example, at the 2200 word level, you can see the word trail, an NGSL word trail. And if the student clicks on that, they get a flashcard. And if they click on the box, they can customize their flashcard. It says add a mem, and you click on that. And what you're given is a chance to add textual information or picture information and to personalize your flashcards. In this case, I've chosen a picture in the forest. I've added it to my flashcard. I added some of my own words, a place to walk in the woods, and now I have a personalized flashcard. So Memrise and Quizlet are up there. We also have some free spaced repetition time interval learning apps called, one is called NGSL Builder. And what you can see is the circled part shows you the spaced repetition element of it, but students are able to just click on the words they don't know and study only the words they don't know, so they don't have to study the whole NGSL. It's set up for that. And then it's set up for spaced repetition. So the words that they don't know, they get more repetition, and the words that they do know well, they're getting less and more spaced repetition. Very good way to change short-term memory to long-term memory. There's 16 of those apps in the store for Android and iPhone and English and Japanese, and 4 different word lists. So you can make use of those. Rob Waring and I also made an app called Word Learner, which has all of our word lists in one app. It also contains a 90,000 word learner dictionary and an LMS, so you can keep track of your students, and vocabulary placement tests. So that might be of use to you as well. I wanted to just briefly show you, I'm going to see if I can demonstrate. This is one of the latest resources we've developed, and this is a video concordancing glossary. And let me just stop the share for a second. I think I've got 6 minutes time, so I think I have time to demonstrate this. Let me go to Safari, new, I'm going to open up a new browser, new general service list. Okay, let me see if I can share this. All right. Sorry, just give me a second. And let's see, Safari, new general service list, and share some. Okay, So I think you can probably see my website, the new General Service List project website. Let's see, whoops, is it still being shared? Hold on a second. Okay. All right, there we go. Now, what you can see is on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of things that you can click on. And if you click on under New General Service List, there's NGSL Tools, which I'm going to click on right now. There's all of the tools that I've talked about. And I should mention that, especially for Quizlet, I would suggest that you access the Quizlet flashcards from our website, not from Quizlet.com. The reason for that is that the NGSL has been out for 10 years now, and it's used around the world. So there are many not so good flashcards on the Quizlet website. Ours are nice and clean. So I would suggest as a starting point to use the Quizlet flashcards that we made. But what I want to show you here is the NGSL glossary. And what we've done, this is just a screenshot you're looking at right now, but you can see the word, part of speech, frequency per million, a pronunciation of the word, and then definitions. And I'm going to click on the live dictionary right now. And so this is the NGSL in alphabetical order. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on a word at random. Let's pick the word actually, for example. Whoops, no, let's see, that's some pronunciation information. Hold on a second. Let me go to the glossary. So here, now, this is a video glossary. And what we can see, it says how to pronounce actually in English, 1 out of 964,831 examples. Let me show you, I'm just going to click on a couple of examples to show you why this is so cool.
It took me years to figure out what actually happened.
Yeah. That we can actually create a new generation of smart drugs and mind-altering chemicals.
Oops.
You have to harness them into a work that is actually useful.
It's actually the complexity that science has given us. And
New York mayors are considering that idea of how you can actually constitute a global parliament.
Middle class, whose wealth has stagnated, if not actually decreased.
Okay. All right. So what you can see, what you could see there, and let me go back to share screen to my PowerPoint. Let's see. Hold on a second. Desktop. Next PowerPoint. Okay. So I think hopefully what you could see there is that this video concordance tool allows you to give authentic examples, multiple authentic examples of the NGSL words in real context. It works very well for learning. It's very good for self-access for students. But there are many ways that you could probably use it, but we've just put it up there for you. Okay, so let me just very quickly, we have about 2 minutes left. I want to just briefly talk also about another resource. And the vocabulary tools that the vocabulary lists and vocabulary tools I've shown you, are about intentional learning. Let's see if I have intentional learning. I think I lost my slide on intentional learning, but that's intentional learning of vocabulary. But incidental learning of vocabulary in extensive reading is also a very good thing to do. In flashcard learning, it's very fast and very efficient, but it's not contextualized. With extensive reading, vocabulary learning is very contextualized and very authentic. So I think that extensive reading is a very good thing to do alongside of intensive learning of vocabulary. And so to that end, Rob Waring and I have also created a free extensive reading and extensive listening website called ercentral.com. And at that website, there's about 1,000 stories that are graded to multiple levels. We have a tool that allows students to self-select their own level, to self-assess and select their own level, and then stories are given to them at their level. There's reading materials and listening materials at their level. And so that means, of course, they're working with the vocabulary that is better for them. This would be designed so the students would be reading at their 97 or 98% level. As you recall, in Japanese high school texts were more like 75%. So this is a way to help build their confidence and help to build their vocabulary learning from extensive context. This is the interface for when they're reading a story. And the nice thing is that if they click on any word that they don't know, of course, the definition will pop up. We've created an HTML dictionary, but there's a green button called click to save this word. And that allows them to go to the vocabulary learning part of our website and to study only the words that they don't know. So when they're doing reading, they can actually combine that with vocabulary learning as well. So for me, basically what I'm suggesting is that we can combine the intentional study of high frequency vocabulary via flashcards and put that together with extensive reading, because each of them has the strength that the other one is missing. And I think that the word lists that I've worked on these past 10 years and this extensive reading website, both of them can be tools that could be useful for you in this era of extensive reading. And so I'm hoping that these tools, that these word lists will be useful to you. There's actually many more things on the website that I haven't gone into. We haven't even talked about the content creation tools or the grading tools. There's many other things there, but if you're interested, please go to our website. There's three of them, and all three of them are very useful for this topic of helping to develop students' vocabulary and through flashcards and extensive reading. So I'll stop for now. I think I'm 2 minutes over my allotted time. Sorry about that, but thank you very much.
All right, no worries. Charles, thank you very much. Let's give him a nice virtual round of applause. What you can do also, Charles, is take some of those links and maybe you can put them in the chat. You can share them that way as well.
I'll do that right now. Good idea.
People can get that information.
Good idea.
Okay.
Let's just.
Okay, so while he's doing that, we'll move on and I'll introduce our next speaker. He'll be coming on. We'll have a few minutes until he comes on from 2:05, but our next speaker will be Hiroyuki Obari of Aoyama Gakuin University.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind introduction, Professor Wayne.
Hold on one second. Somebody's
okay.
dog interrupted it.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, no worries. I just wanted to say, give you the proper introduction that you deserve, I would say. So Obari Sensei is an expert in language and information science, and Dr. Obari has been teaching in the Department of Economics for many years, and his research interests include CAL, computer-assisted language learning, applied linguistics, AI, artificial intelligence, and English language teaching, and computer-assisted English language teaching. And Obari Sensei has a very, actually, I cut off part of your title and on the website, the Latin part. I couldn't figure out the entire Latin part. My bad. I have to go back and study my Latin. Illuminati Dominus Meo is something it was. But he'll be talking about the impact of virtual online learning and COIL during the COVID-19 during COVID-19. Yes, Dominus Illuminatio Mea. That was the first part of the title. So without further ado, Dr. Obari, you can begin.
Okay.
Can we change the
spotlight?
Can you hear me? Hold on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can we change the spotlight?
Yes, thank you very much. I will do that.
And can I just upload my PowerPoint slide?
Yes, you can just share right from your computer. Go right ahead.
Yes. And I send you several links. And yesterday I gave a sort of a final lecture in Japanese, but today, I'll be speaking in English, my Japanese Ibaraki English. Okay, so you may have to put up with my accent and whatever. Just so first, YouTube, and are there many Japanese audience here today? I don't know who they are. So, but
I would probably say the majority of the audience is Japanese.
Yes, I will. Just so that's why I sent several links, both in Japanese and in English. My talks in the past, And can you see my slide now?
Okay.
Can you see my slide?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to this symposium. My name is Hiroyuki Obari. Today, I'd like to talk about the impact of virtual online learning during COVID-19. And this is our statue, John Wesley. That's the most important statue in our university. More or less, this statue has a lot to do with the Dominus Illuminatio Mea. I will explain this later because that's my purpose to tell you today's story. It's a sort of a grander story of my academic life. My outline, this is my outline. My presentation is divided into 9 sections. First, paradigm shift. Second, history of AI and society 5.0 and 21st century skills. And first case study before the COVID-19 using AI speaker. And third case studies during the COVID-19 and future education summary and conclusion. Okay. Now, I made 2 research questions. First research question is how to integrate 21st century skills into education. The second question is how to train the higher order thinking skills. And now we are moving toward a sort of a society 5.0. Maybe right now it is between the society 4.0 and the society 5.0. And the society 5.0 is the integration of cyberspace and physical space. And so all the economic development and social problems seem to be solved by computer algorithm. Computer algorithm is very important. It's a sort of a data-driven society. That is why we are now facing a sort of a paradigm shift because of the advancement of ICT or mobile technologies and the cloud environment. We can engage in seamless learning anytime, anywhere for 24 hours now. Also, the third most important thing is the artificial intelligence and big data and IoT, plus COVID-19. And here, history of AI. It takes about more than 20 minutes. I gave a presentation together with my colleague at the JALT conference. So I sent you the video link for this, So I will skip this part and I will just explain what the Super Society 5.0 is. The Super Smart Society turned out to be paved with an important role for technologies such as the Internet of Things, AI, artificial intelligence, cyber physical system, VR, AR, MR, mixed reality, big data. The advancement of learning analytics is very important nowadays for learning English. So the teacher's role totally have changed. Teacher used to teach a lot and then get some feedback with a student or just assess the student performance. But it's entirely changed now. I think the teacher has to be a facilitator. And we have to know what's going on around the world, also where we can find out the nice links and whatever, so the curator. And then finally the mentor, how we're going to supervise the student, And now let me move on to the 21st century skills, higher order thinking skills. As you know, this idea came out early 21st century, 3 R's and 7 C's. And if you look at the 7 C's, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, innovation, collaboration, teamwork, leadership, and cross-cultural understanding. But in this section, I'd like to really emphasize the importance of worldviews. What is your belief? What you believe in? Are you an atheist or are you a monotheist or you are an evolutionist or creationist? I will talk about it later. And then the communication and media literacy, computing ITC literacy, career learning, and self-reliance. You totally agree with these 7 C's. But I think I will add one more C. It's a sort of a coexistence with AI because of the advancement of AI, big data, and IoT. And as you know, the Kurzweil is a very famous scholar in the field of AI, and he predicts AI is going to reach the singularity by 2045. And Osborne, the professor of Oxford, I think I listened to his lecture several times over there, and 48% present types of jobs will disappear. These jobs will be more or less integrated to the AI-related jobs. And also the famous historian, he wrote Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. Harari predicts the people will be divided into two camps. Two camps mean one is just you're going to control the AI by computer algorithm, you'll be totally in charge. Other party will be just, you'll be used by AIs. You might be, the sort of a slave of AI. So I think we, nowadays, the teachers have a heavy responsibility to teach the student how to use AI, how to experience, AI. And here the Kurzweil describes his law of accelerating returns, which predicts an exponential increase in technology like computers, genetics, robotics, and artificial intelligence. And once the singularity has been reached by 2045, machine intelligence will be infinitely more powerful than all human intelligence combined. And his prediction is 2021, right now, AI deal with big data, respond to us without feeling. AI has a different kind of feeling. And if you use a smart speaker, it's just artificial, voice and feeling. So of course we can interact, or we can carry out some very complicated discourse. And by 2030, AI teacher will be available to teach and deal individually with the development of each student in learning, like a learning analytics. About 2 years ago, I think we invited Professor Ogata. He's an expert in this field, and he's doing some extensive research in Kyoto area, targeting many junior and high school students to develop this, AI teachers and whatever. And then 2045, by 2045, singularity may be going to take place. So it will be like humans, really. But here we have to think about what makes us humans. Kurzweil, MIT versus Tarasenko, Oxford. So just I will introduce the one important event. I often go to Oxford every year, March, and also in summer. I used to be a visiting scholar several times, and I attended the DCM conference. DCM stands for Developing a Christian Mind Conference, just like this. We had a DCM conference, New College, 2019. Okay, and this is a Professor Tarasenko. He's now the leading thinker or scholar in the field of AI, and he established a sort of AI college in Oxford. And also, he is the head of a computer science department. But he's a really special fellow, and he invented the jet engine, regulation of jet engines. That is the most important work. And also, he's now developing the sort of a medical, treatment with using AI. And I asked Professor Tarasenko after his keynote lecture, and just I brought up the issue of singularity, just like Kurzweil mentioned. And Professor Tarasenko, AI is going to be like human. That's what the Kurzweil predicts. What do you think about the future AI? And of course, he said AI is going to be functioning like humans. However, that his answer is, then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So that's his answer. If the God, breathes the AI, and is the AI going to be like human? That's his answer. Okay, he's a sort of a creationist. Okay, excuse me. I don't know. Sorry, it stopped. Okay, so then how to teach online classes to find out the new discovery. And whenever we find out the new discovery, ontology and epistemology, those two keywords are very important. Ontology is just things exist independently, and then epistemology is just sort of how we're going to aware of what's going on around us. So those two terms are very important. And then how we're going to train the student higher order thinking skills. And I brought up the Bloom's digital taxonomy. And in Japan, I think we seem to focus on the lower level of thinking from level 1 to level 3. However, the university, in order to find out something new, we have to really focus on from level 4 to level 6. Means how we're going to teach, higher order thinking skills. Higher order thinking skills should be emphasized: analysis, evaluation, and creation. And when we, refer to the creation or critical thinking, metaphysics is very important. And so now let me introduce the case study 1. Before the COVID-19, I didn't put down this on the abstract, but that's a very important part, so I will include in this talk. And the use of AI smart speaker and VR, the third year economic major student. And my philosophy in education is language is the worldview. And I really want to tell the student to develop student way of thinking, worldviews, and you have to find out who you are, identity. And the second one is to acquire 21st century skills plus experience AI. And third one is to acquire more cross-culturally sensitive understanding via ICT, COIL, collaborative online international learning, and finally to improve English proficiency and presentation skills. This is my class. My student usually use Google, iPad, and the Alexa or Google Home Mini. Okay, they've been using all the time. And this is how the students are engaged in. My classroom is very busy, and I often invite many foreign students to my class. This is a sort of a flip learning style. And I usually use Facebook, also the course power as a LMS. I uploaded all the teaching or learning materials on the Facebook and the videos and other links. But as far as the LMS is concerned, the university LMS is concerned, they let us allow, let us upload about only the 5 mega. What can we do with the 5 megabyte, Only you have to find out the links and the YouTube links and whatever. But if you use Facebook, you can upload very heavy files, That's why I decided to use. I've been using this for almost 10 years. So the student download from the LMS, just like Facebook. The student could make a PowerPoint slide or do some essay writing. But in essay writing, I often allow the student to use a Grammarly or DeepL or Trinka. I sent some link. Trinka is a very advanced software to check your English mistakes. It's not perfect, but still, I think a Trinka might be better than Grammarly. It's entirely free. And so after they download the materials, I gave some specific assignments. So they have to prepare the PowerPoint slides, and then they have to do some recording, and then upload with the MP4 files. The classroom, mainly, I put much emphasis upon the interaction, discussion, and presentation, and Q&A and assessment. And after that, and if the student happen to find out some mistakes on the slide and whatever, they have to do some correction and then upload to the Facebook again. So this is a sort of a learning circle. And the Professor Thomas Loeb, he invented the peer eval. So I've been using this peer eval for all classes. Students could be more engaged in the presentation and activities if we use this present software. Peer eval is very powerful. And so this is a sort of a crowd learning environments, flipped learning, or mainly the student challenge-based learning or project-based learning, or sometimes problem solving learning and then task-based learning. So I drew a clear distinction, what the student could learn outside the class, and also how are they're going to engage in the inside the class. This year I've been using the Zoom. Okay, and now Amazon Alexa is available free of charge, and we used to buy the Amazon Alexa, but with a smartphone you can download this software and then you can use or you can interact. Okay, that this is a Facebook. And I carried out some experiment in 2019, April to January 2020 for 10 months. And they used the Google VL, and they mainly used at home, and they encouraged to use daily. And they took a pre-test and pre and post test, and the pre and post OPIC speaking test, and then they took survey questions. Mainly, AI speakers have many applications. I would say that Alexa has more, and they are obliged to record the short movie clips sometimes when they are engaged in learning, about 1 minute, and then upload to the Facebook. Also, they encourage them to keep written diaries with their observation about the contents and duration of their studies. And also, students gave many presentations about their experiment of using BL and AL at the end of the semester. Actually, and I let them use those complicated technologies. So they have to set up some research questions, and based upon the previous study, and they set up some certain hypothesis. And for 10 months, they have to carry out a sort of experimental research, and then at the end of the semester, they gave us a presentation in English. The kind of software application they used as follows, like a Google VL Earth, Best Teacher, Travel English, Let's Play Around with English. This is more or less interactive. BBC, CNN News, Toeic Practice, and Let's Speak. This one is also very interactive. And through this course, I asked a question at the end of the course. Did you learn 21st century skills and importance of AI through this seminar? About 97%, they said yes. Did you improve your critical thinking skills? I think about 100%, The result of TOEIC and OPIC speaking test, just I will show you. There used to be an improvement of about 150 points, before introducing the AI speaker. But this year, after they used the AI speaker, their mean score, a TOEIC score, went up, CEPA A2 level to CEPA B2 level, about 215 points. About 2/3 of the students, usually they study so hard, they got more than 850, even in the official score. And then the OPIC speaking test, it's about 0.83 improvement. This is there are 8 bounds, bounds here. Okay, so from A2 to B1, not so bad. Okay, from 3.91 to 4.74. And also another experiment I carried out is AI speaker versus non-AI classes. And just for 10 months, one class that they used about 30 students, they used the AI speaker for 10 months. The non-AI class, instead of using AI speaker, they highly engaged in the e-learning. But other than that, the other pedagogy is exactly the same. And if you look at the score, AI class improved about 197 points, pre and post, and the non-AI class improved only 151 points. So AI class, if they use the AI speaker, this class seemed to perform better than the non-AI classes. Okay. Now let me move on to the English education with COVID-19. And my goal is just integrate ICT, AI, worldviews, and English. And second case study is at the Tokyo Institute of Technology Graduate School. I've been teaching there for almost 10 years, especially for master's and PhD students. And here, last year, 2020, first time, the PhD student 20 and MS student 4. Online live lessons, and I let them read 3 articles on Facebook, download and make PPT slide for presentation. And I invited some professor weekly from the United States to this online lecture about global leadership, worldviews, and cross-cultural issues like a cross-cultural CQ quotient, And then I used the MPEG 4 movies, YouTube, and other things. mainly they're highly engaged in the presentation at the breakdown, breakout room, Q&A, and then assessment. Assessment performance with peer eval, 6 categories that they really focused on, to improve their presentation. And so crowd learning environments again here, but here the Zoom. And Dr. E is teaching the worldviews, especially he's a theologian, she's a theologian in Oxford. And I listened to his lecture about 25 years ago, and I invited her to come to our university twice. And also, this is a very important iceberg model, the E.T. Edward T. Hall in 1976. And we tend to focus on only the surface culture, tradition, customs, and behavior, because those areas are observable. However, when we think about the deep and shallow culture, we cannot see, we cannot observe. That's why it has a lot to do with the worldviews. Also, you have to really, see or think, even though those are invisible. And now the next concept is very important. According to Professor Rom Halley, he passed away about 2 years ago. He's a very famous scholar in the field of science and theology, philosophy, philosopher of science. And he indicated in his concept of, ontology and epistemology, the things belong to 3 areas. You see, and sometimes by observation, if the things could be identified or perceived. For example, if you look at, you look at the things around you, you can see and observe and touch and feel, right? So that's area 1. The realm 2 is, let's say, if you look, the coronavirus, you cannot see, right? But once you become coronavirus, COVID-19, you suffer. Your body function will be not so normal, right? And so if you use a particular technology or instrument like a telescope or a microscope, sometimes you can observe this area. Those things belong to number 2, right? By analogy, you can find out this, or if you use a special instrument. But the things, the truth is there's more to it. The realm 3 is most important. Things cannot be observed and perceived with technology or particular instrument. And like Professor Koshiba, Nobel laureate, he invented the many instruments to catch up, to catch the most important phenomena, core. And he assumed, I think, there seemed to be some physical important thing, even though we cannot observe. And so far, we cannot, really detect or we cannot lead a truth in it, But by using some, technology or instrument, he happened to catch some important phenomena because he's really paying attention to realm 3. What I really want to say is the new discovery usually, occur when the things discovered from the realm area, in the realm 3 area, and then get down to the realm 2. So that's where the higher order thinking, is very important. Training is very important. I often apply this principle to teach the higher order thinking skill for the student. I think. Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, this is a Professor Rom Halley, and I send the student the article, What is Scientific Realism, and his, lecture. I think you can listen to his lecture. I gave you the link. I send you the link. Later on, you can watch and hit YouTube. And just I will show you, and DPhil student from India, after he, participated in my seminary, and also after he studied the worldviews and scientific realism, yeah.
As we saw earlier, a large part of purpose is shaped by your worldviews, and how you see the world has a very non-trivial impact on what role you think you play in it. Comparing my understanding of this with Dr. Yi's second model, I think that as we go from realm 1 to realm 3 of scientific realism, we need to learn new things about ourselves that we must apply to our daily pursuit of the truth of reality, and only then can you proceed successively from 1 to 3. If you look at the diagram on the left, you can see my interpretation of Dr. Yi's second model. I think that once you obtain a result in your research that lies in realm 1, you need to reflect on what led to that result and the fallacies that you committed while walking down that path. In order to raise your level of thinking from realm 1 to realm 3, you need to dive deeper into the subject, which of course requires more mental effort than what you already took. As you perform the process of deeper understanding, your worldviews also become clear, and you see the pillars of reality, knowledge, and morality on which a worldview is founded with more clarity.
So this gentleman, he's working for the PhD at the Tokyo Institute of Technology, and he just paid attention to Liam 3 area and then invented his special method to find out some new discovery. You know, he set up some hypothesis. You know, okay. And another thing is just I often invite some another scholar, Thomas Weekly from the United States. He mainly talks about cross-cultural issues and global leadership. And you know, last year, before COVID-19, I invited him to my classroom, and he's highly emphasizing sort of a development of intercultural sensitivity, from denial to integration, adaptation. So I encourage my student to target adaptation, this area, acceptance and adaptation. And the CQ, you know, your capability to function effectively in the intercultural context, national, ethnic, and organizational cultures. And he said, 70% of international ventures fail because of cultural differences, you know. So the globalization of our world requires us to develop CQ and understand worldview to find out the new discovery from Liam 3 area, okay? And third case study is at the AGU and the Waseda. I've been teaching also at the Waseda for about 10 years. This is a sort of a CBL challenge-based learning. And I just applied this principle to my classroom also. And almost the same thing, they have to, you know, download from the Facebook. And this time, you know, students have to make a sort of a, you know, flip grid video, okay? And the links, I also send you this links, you know, Oxford, there is a very famous link there that in each institute, they are doing some most advanced research. Even Oxford Martin School, Oxford Internet Institute, if you are keen on, just you can look at and then click this, you can encounter many, many exciting things. And the Oxford Side Business School, I went to the Oxford Side Business School to listen to the lecture. I was so surprised at the entrance at the Side Business School. And there is a Latin, you know, Dominus Illuminatio Mea. That's Oxford University Side Business School's motto as well. And you know the Richard Dawkins, he's very famous even in Japan, but he's promoting a sort of an evolution. But there is another counterpart, Alistair Douglas. He's a creationist, and he's really, you know, a sort of expert for science and theology. And there's been many, many debates, like Richard Dawkins and Alistair Douglas. Okay, also the you know, the top of the Canterbury cathedrals. You know, so this is an Oxford Martin School. So Oxford Martin School is dealing with environment, health, and society and economics. So my students, you know, they are assigned to do some new discovery, and so they have to choose any interesting subject in each field, and then they're going to look at the articles, and then they download a video, they listen to the YouTube, and then they have to you know, set up some own some certain problems. And they have to do some you know, research question, research methodology, and then the you see process of discussion, and then come to the sort of research findings. You know, that's a sort of a project I always emphasize for my student. You know, in this classroom, in the virtual learning, Professor Weekly gave us a lecture. And also the CCS members, CCS stand for Campus Crusade for Christ. And they often came to my classroom at least once a month. And I divided my student into, about 6 groups when the CCS 6 members came to class. So each one of the breakout room, the 3-to-1, CCS versus 3 Japanese students, they could interact, they could give a presentation. So the CCS, they're expert in English language, some native speakers. So they can check, they could listen to the presentation and they assess and they interact, And sometimes what is most important in the interaction is just to talk about the cultural difference, the worldviews, All of them are Christians. They have a Christian, Judeo-Christian Christian worldviews. However, many Japanese people believe in millions of God. None, I would say, the atheists, So that's why the discussion seemed to be very influential. This gentleman he's a leader.
Kind of people that are connected in over 200 countries, and so yeah, lots of different cultures and lots of different people with different experiences. And so today, especially this month, we wanted to kind of take a look at Christmas. And so within our organization, we have people from different countries in Japan. Within this class, America and Singapore. And so we wanted to share a little bit about what do we and how do we think and experience and celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, just like this. And also the flip grid, after they listen to or after they made a presentation about, from Oxford Martins, some issues. And they always have to make a presentation with a flip grid as well. Okay. And I will show this one. Maybe we have still time.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shuhei Aonuma from Aoyama Gakuin University, major in economics. And from now on, I will give a presentation about what I learned in this seminar for 2 years. As I said, it's been about 2 years since I entered this seminar, and in the process so far, I have done various tasks such as presentations related to AI, presentations in Singapore, ATR cold breaks, TED Talks, and special lectures by Professor Weekly. What to get may vary from student to student, but I will pick up and present what I have learned that I personally find important. This is my outline, and my presentation is divided into 9 parts. First, 2 ways of learning. Second, presentation. Third, attractive way of speaking.
It's about 10 minutes, they have to always give a presentation reflecting upon what they learned. Okay, sorry. And sorry, excuse me, overlapped, And the fourth case study is sort of a COIL and the international exchange with the National University of Singapore. And my student enjoyed the exchange program, and they have been conducting this program for 10 years. But this year, 2020, I couldn't take them to Singapore, so we had a sort of a virtual exchange. And when I took them to Singapore, about 70 national NUS students interacted with us, 19 Japanese students. I took them to NUS, also APEC and other international institutions. But this year, we decided to carry out a sort of a COIL for 8 weeks. This is a Professor Izumi Walker. She is a Japanese teacher at NUS. For 8 weeks, we had a sort of a joint seminar on a virtual, breakout session. And the 19 students versus 19 Japanese students, these students are divided into 5 groups, and they targeted many issues. And every week they got together on online breakout session, and they discussed 自宅環境の関する意識調査, okay? And there are different 5 topics. And then they spent about 8 weeks before they did the main presentation. On the November the 10th last year, we took about 3 hours. We had a sort of a joint seminar presentation. About 100 students, also teachers, came to our online session. And the 19 Singaporean students, they gave a presentation about what they researched for the past 8 weeks. Whereas our Japanese student, the Japanese student would like to, study English. That's why they targeted these 4 topics to achieve SDGs, or how to survive with COVID-19, or AI and society and Japan's modern problems. And then they gave a presentation. And I listened to several lecture or conference lecture, and maybe after we had an exchange, and Professor Suzuki suggested we should have a sort of a digital text together, even with COIL. So the digital text COIL text will be really good. Maybe in the future, for the future exchange, I'd like to try digital text. And the PIL, I'm very thankful to Professor Thomas Law. He's an expert in this field. And the assessment with a smartphone during a presentation is very useful. This guy is giving a presentation, and the another guy could assess his performance. And once the presentation is done, automatically you see assess 6 items. And then once you finish a presentation, you could look at and compare with other people, and what is your weakness, you can find out easily. And the assessment, pre-test, post-test, assessment presentation with PABL, MPEG-4 movie product, and presentation reflection, how much the student engaged in. I try to catch up, the student advancement using a portfolio. And if you use this PIL, feedback, and it's easy to, see the quick feedback is the most important advantage. And many students, they thought it was very useful for presentation. And coming back to the questionnaire about COVID-19, and flipped learning helps students to improve English proficiency with PBL and CBL project, about 76.3 among the 80 students, And interaction with CCC, Campus Crusade for Christ, help you to improve your English proficiency, of course, 80%, And what about to be more motivated to study English, 76.7, and help you to change your worldviews or own belief, about 62 point. So more or less my students who interacted with CCS, they tend to be more open-minded. And also they learn the importance of 21st century skills and AI with this Zoom lesson. And the breakout session was very useful in interaction in learning EFL. And so the cultural language exchange like a COIL help you to learn the worldviews and cross-cultural communication. And cultural and language exchange with NUS help you to improve your English proficiency. Okay, and then now move on to the coexistence with VR and physical reality. And I think this is a very useful tool, like even during the COVID-19. And now the smart glass, only the 150 gram, it's seems to be coming now, okay? And the immerse English education, that's a very important platform, and this company is promoting how the student could learn English with VR, okay? So AI and education in the future is first AI assisting human education, and also AI augments human education, and AI education assisted by humans, and the AI completely substitute for human education. It's a sort of a hybrid learning. So it depends on how our AI is going to be more progressing in the future. But what I'm saying, what I really want to emphasize is maybe if you alone, you could engage in learning with AI speakers and whatever. However, we have to emphasize the sort of interaction, just like always I invite some foreign speaker to my class. The student could engage in discussion and interaction, to talking about or to find out who you are, the identity and worldviews, you know. So integration is a keyword. And now for the English education for the future is collaboration, AI plus humans, VR, AR, or MR, hybrid, and COIL. And before I'm about to finish my presentation, John Dewey once said, if we teach today as we taught yesterday, we are depriving our children of tomorrow. Well, I'm so scared, you know. And the technology we have at our fingertips can help us to become those memorable teachers of tomorrow, okay? And so to sum up my presentation, education for the 21st century skills, hybrid and pre-planning, and we have to emphasize higher order thinking skills and the integration of human plus AI and VR and collaboration so the student could become autonomous learners. And the dominus eliminatio here I'd like to explain. It means the Lord is my light, okay? That's taken from Psalm 27. And for me, the dominus eliminatio is a life, meaning, you know, this word helped me to find out the real purpose of my life and hope, okay? And after I encountered this word, my life has been so much abundant. I could met these peoples, Dr. Romhare and Dr. E, you know. And this is my pastor in Oxford, Professor Gilson. I always talk about, you know, a lot of things. I don't care about speaking like American or Japanese, I mean, English, British English. I think we now, Japanese student, we should be encouraged to speak our own language. Even the accent, you know, Japanese English would be okay. And finally, in conclusion, and I will say that education is what remains after you have forgotten what you have learned in school. I think that's a very important comment. And the final comment I'd like to say is a dominus eliminatio mea. And so the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Okay, this is the Oxford motto. Okay, that's it. Thank you for your kind attention. You know, yep. Okay, sorry. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was great. Wow, that was a lot of information. That was great talk. Okay. Thank you so much, Obari Sensei.
Yes.
And so from this point on, we will go into our panel discussion with Noda Sensei, Browne Sensei, and Obari Sensei. And I will highlight them, and we'll give people a few moments to collect their thoughts and get their questions. But this is the time where you can, if you have any questions, you can ask questions to the speakers. Okay.
Well, actually, before questions, I just wanted to make a very, very brief comment, and that is to say thank you to Professor Obari. Not only was this a wonderful talk and very informative, but I read yesterday that he just taught his last class and is about to retire. And I had the pleasure of working at Professor Obari's University, Aoyama Gakuin. I was a professor there for 12 years, and it was a great joy to work together with him and to become friends with him. And I've watched his career and watched the many, many contributions he's made to our field, and he's worked with passion and relentlessly and never tiring to try and push our field forward. And I'm very thankful for both his friendship and for the great contributions he's made. And I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Browne. I really enjoyed your good friendship in Christ. You know, also you are the Christian, wonderful fellow, and so thank you very much. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations on your esteemed career. But it seems you're not slowing down. So
not at all.
Not at all. So we'll see.
I don't know. Just I have to tell the more grander story. You know? Yeah. Dominus eliminatio mea. That's most important.
I will
and you can forget you can forget my talk, but you have to remember this the Latin word, dominus eliminatio mea.
Like I said, I'll go back and study my Latin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is a Christ Church, in Oxford. Yeah, that's where John Wesley was educated and also taught at the Lincoln College. Yeah.
Now, when I was at Aoyama, of course I remember the wonderful statue of John Wesley.
Yes.
But for me as a Christian, of course, it had significance to me. But many of my students, I would ask them about that statue, and they, I don't know if they still call it that, but they would call him Chotto mate oji-san. Is that true? They still do that?
Maybe so. I don't know. Yeah. And you see that when I went to Oxford, I always asked my student, do you know the word dominus eliminatio mea? Even Oxford elite student, they know about 50% knows about the meaning, but the other 50 they don't care about. Even the scholars, you see, just like DCM conference scholars, Aristomagras is a very famous scholar, but he's a devout Christian as well. About 50%. The academic is a sort of regarded as a god. They worship the academic work better than or more than the providence. There are many scholars like that. I don't like
that. Actually, maybe to start off the panel discussion, to bring this kind of a little bit back to the theme of our symposium, if the three of you maybe could give a comment about how you see language and linguistics in the age of remote teaching and learning, and how you feel it kind of connects to what you're doing.
Well, certainly, I think I touched on that just a little bit at the beginning of my talk, but I've been working in this area for many years, pre-COVID, and I think that it's always surprised me over the years of trying to bring online learning to Japan, how such a technologically advanced country where every single digital device ever invented is owned by almost every single person, that they could be so resistant to using technology for education. And I and many others have been trying relentlessly to try to push online learning forward. And I'm very sad about COVID. This is a horrible situation, but one of the few silver linings is that it's sort of, I think, made a very big push for everybody to do something that they knew they should have been doing a long time ago. And I think, of course, there's going to be pushback. There already is pushback. I'm seeing that, especially in departments of literature where they, there's just a reluctance to do anything with online learning. But I think in many other parts of the system, you see people innovating and doing good things and students reacting well. I mean, I think Zoom in particular, I love Zoom because I think that when it's used in pedagogically sound ways, you can really promote communicative language teaching. I think the breakout rooms are excellent for that. I think the polling functions and the other way, and if you're having students work in breakout rooms and then make presentations to everybody, it can actually be quite conducive to interaction and to a lot of other good things that to promote second language learning. So I'm optimistic that things were going to move forward, but its pace is always slow here.
Noda Sensei, how about you? How do you think the future of UALS connects with emergency remote language teaching and learning?
日本語でいいですか？
大丈夫。はい。
面白い。
そうですね。このコロナの問題がなければ、昔のままの部分が多かったと思うんですけども、コロナの問題が起こって、 非常に速いスピードでいろんな AI も含めてオンライン化とか、いろんなことが進んでるなと、なんか未来が明るいなというふうに感じています。私は英語教育のことは全然専門ではないんですが、日本語教育でも多分試験も含めてオンラインっていうのがこれから研究も含めて盛んになっていくだろうなと非常に楽しみにしてます。今日のお話を伺って将来いろんなことが変わっていくだろうなということを感じました。ありがとうございます。
はい、ありがとう。That's great. Obari sensei, how about you?
はい、日本語でお話しさせてください。最後です。
どうぞどうぞ。
やはり私はCOVID-19 の前もハイブリッド形式でですね、使えるものはありとあらゆるもの、オンライン、インターネットですね、使うものは使ってってことで、ただ変わった点っていうのは、Zoom でこういうふうにインタラクションするか、あるいはクラスの中でですね、インタラクションしていくかということですね。ただ海外に人を連れていけないっていうのも、体験ができないっていうのは大事なんですけども、今与えられた状況の中で、やっぱりやっていくしかないと思うんですね。で、オンラインを使って良かった点っていうのは、世界中からいろんな人をクラスに呼べんですね。もちろんタイムディフェレンスはあります。しかし、喜んでですね、海外から若い人たちが私のクラスに入ってきてですね、日本の若者とインタラクションしてくれると。で、ブレイクアウトセッションでは、親密な人間の問題とかいろんなものを相談できるしですね。だからそれはすごくやっぱオンラインの利点かなと。だから、always, there seem to be always the reverse side of the coin とか、物事にはすでに表裏一体というのがあると思うんですね。いいとこと悪いとこ。だから、オンラインの良さ、今のバーチャルラーニングの良さ、あるいは対面の良さというもの、それをうまく両方ですね、取り入れながらやっていって、状況に応じた中で、今後は教育も進めていかなきゃいけないなと。今ある状況の中で最大限にできることはやっていく必要があると。ただ、やっぱり今日は話しなかったんですけど、私の最終レクチャーで言ったことは、私がなんでその CCS の人たちを連れてくるかというと、彼らのやっぱり世界観の問題なんですよね。それは、ものすごく人を大事にするんですね。人を大事にするというか。なんでかというと、日本人で英語の全くできないような、しっちゃかめっちゃか英語を話すような学生でも、傾聴するというか、相手が一生懸命話そうとしてくれることを聞いてくれるんですね。そして、学生たちは、今までこんなにですね、私の英語を一生懸命聞いてくれた人なんてないと。で、そこからね、力を得て、一生懸命英語を勉強しようと、モチベーションにもつながっていくし、やっぱり教育っていうのは AI はできないですよ。世界観とかそういうね、AI はできないですよ。どんなに進んだとしても。やっぱり人間対人間で、オックスフォードが言ってるチュートリアルですよね。そういうものを通して人の価値観っていうのは培われていくのかなと思いますね。だから、オンラインのいいとこはいいとこでたくさん使っていったらいいんじゃないかっていうのは私の考え方です。以上です。すいません。
ありがとう。All right.
Wayne,
yeah.
maybe just one other point for consideration here, because I am, running a teacher training program at Meiji Gakuin, and the reason for getting into teacher training is my feeling that for decades that Monkasho, the Ministry of Education, has really ignored proper training of teachers especially for the 21st century skills. I mean, I think that communicative language teaching, using technology in the classroom, 21st century skills, all of these things are quite challenging and complicated and require a lot of thought, a lot of training, a lot of study, a lot of practice. And at my school with my students, I have several years to bring them that information and those skills. But most teachers, most English teachers at least, are not given that opportunity, are not given that training. And so I think one of the big hurdles, one of the big difficulties we have in this age of ERT is that teachers don't have the proper training and aren't getting the proper support to teach online learning. And then I think compounding that is the view by many universities, at least, that, oh, it's online learning, so it's not as difficult as face-to-face, when in fact the opposite is true. I think that I've seen over the past year dozens of teachers very, very tired and stressed and overwhelmed, putting in double or triple the amount of time to try their best to do something they've never done before. And then the schools are not even recognizing that extra effort. So I think that I'm a believer in online learning. I'm a believer in the value of it, in the potential for it. But I'm also very open. I have my eyes wide open to the many problems we face. And I think that teacher education and teacher support is a very important thing that we have to address for emergency remote teaching and online learning to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I think based on what all three of you just said, that it's something that should be on MEC's radar, knowing the way Japanese society kind of works, almost from, well, when it comes to these kind of bureaucratic things, from like a top-down situation where they design these programs and then it filters down to the local municipalities, etc. I think it's really, really, really important for them to, have in their eyesights this new paradigm that we're dealing with, because we're not going backwards. It's not going back. Maybe some people feel like it should be, but I don't think it will be. Because now students are even more empowered using their own cell phones and whatever devices they have, and it's kind of only the next step is to really figure out how to get our professionals trained up and really integrated into the tech sphere that we're dealing with. I think it's really, really important. Totally agree. Actually, with that, I reposted a few things. The thing that Obari sent me, he sent me the Oxford Dominus Illuminato Mea thing, and I reposted that to everyone because it just came to me. So I reposted that for everybody. And also, we have a few questions in the chat to kind of start us off. Actually, just before, there was one question here for Charles early on. Gabriella had a question about how does your talk connect to, oh, sorry, wrong one. Do you plan to frame the vocabulary related to the Cepher bands, English profile, and or the Cepher J with your?
Okay, that's a very good question. I think Cepher is something that everybody is aware of and has become a kind of a measuring stick for many programs. And it's good for some things. I think Cepher is very good for some things, but in terms of vocabulary development for second language learners, I don't think this is the best system, because there's just too many words in each of the levels. It's a factor of 10 times the amount of words in the new general service list. So our list is very, very tight and is very specifically focused on the needs of second language learners and getting them to the point where they can read and interact with text without a dictionary. There's a good correlation there. Of course, there's a correlation with Cepher, and we've done that research before, but the problem is there's just too many words in each of the Cepher bands for there to be a tight correlation. So it really depends what your purpose is as to whether our list is better or whether the Cepher list is better. And I think the same is true with JASIT 8000 here in Japan. I mean, the JASIT 8000, those researchers are wonderful. They really know what they're doing. They're proper corpus linguists, and it's a proper list, but the purpose is different. The JASIT is more a reflection of Japanese education. So the JASIT words are a reflection of test English, of high school textbook English, of actually, in a way, the problems in Japan, whereas the NGSL is more focused on the needs of second language learners in the real world. And just by chance, it happens to have good overlap with the center exam and other things, but that wasn't our intention. Our primary focus was not test English. Our primary focus is to help second language learners to succeed as quickly as possible with the shortest list as possible.
Wow, very interesting. Noda sensei or Obari sensei, you want to make any comment on that as well, or?
Yes, maybe the safer 日本のジャセットですね、もういいとは思うんですけども、やっぱり日本的なレベルとですね、世界的なレベルってあっと思うんですよね。だからやはり世界の標準というのは何かなってことを常に意識しながら、日本の英語教育もやっていく必要はあるなと思います。で、私はしょっちゅうですね、年に6回か7回科研とか総研からグラントもらってるんで、いろんなとこ行ってですね、会議で出て、いろんなことを学んでるわけですけど、で、ちょっとですね、AI に関する質問がセカンダリースクールの日本でですね、今ほとんどの小学校では伝統的な方法で、言葉を教えているってことで、AI がどういうふうな役割を果たすかということの質問があったと思うんですが、これに答えたいと思うんですが、今、このラーニングアナリティクスっていうか AI を用いたですね、これがすごく研究が盛んなんですね。で、特に京都大学を中心に、尾形先生っていうのがいらっしゃるんですけども、今、中学校と高校生をターゲットにしながらですね、大きなそのビッグデータを集めてます。いろんなことで学習者がどういうふうな形でつまずいたりですね、あるいはウィークネスとか、その弱点とか。だから、尾形って京都ユニバーシティって入れて、ラーニングアナリティクスと Google するとですね、実際、どんな実験をやって、どういうような効果を上げているかと。で、今、去年あたりからですかね、大学院生、もうこの専門家が一緒に研究をしてるんですけども、それから国立情報学研究所って NII、そこにですね、いろんなケースがあります。NII っていう。2週間ごとに木連先生が中心になってシンポジウムやってるんですけども、そこに行ってまた学ぶのもいいのかなと。で、これからはやはりビッグデータが集まってくると弱い学生をどう指導したらいいか。あるいはアドバンスな学生をどう指導したらいいかって、それがですね、相当、あと5年ぐらいできっと実現可能じゃないかなと私は予測してるんですけども、だから AI も使えるような、で、あとミニロボット化で、同社なんかでは、同社中学校はミニロボットを使いながら英語を教えたりですね、iPad とかパソコン1台っていうのは今普通、あるいはスマホで学習できますから、ぜひともですね、AI の活用っていうのは小学校でも使う必要があるのかなというのは私は思っています。プログラミングまでは体験するのはいいですけども、以上です。すいません。
Yeah, that's very good. Thank you. Actually, there's a few more questions, but there's a follow-up actually to what you guys are talking about a little bit. It says Shoko Hayashi says, I think what Browne Sensei says, test English is gradually changing now. Nowadays, more and more universities are using newspaper articles as I am making English exam for some universities. I see.
Hold on, let me just, I'm just going to copy a link and then I'll answer the question.
That wasn't a question, that was a comment.
Okay. But let me follow up on that. I'm putting in, I've just put into the chat one of my other free tools that I didn't get a chance to talk about in my presentation today. And this is a tool which allows you to look at the difficulty of texts in terms of vocabulary. And there's about 10 or 12 vocabulary lists. Of course, my lists are there, but there's also Sefer and many other lists. as well. And this tool allows you to analyze the difficulty of the passage that you are going to use for classroom, or if you're going to use for your test. If you are making preparation for the entrance exams at your school, you can gauge the difficulty of the text by using this tool. And I would say, yes, the entrance exams are slowly changing, but even recent analysis of the major tests show that they tend to be too difficult. They tend to be more difficult than native speaker materials. So I think, especially private universities like my own, we're very careful so that the entrance exam questions are actually quite easy. We try to make sure that they are easy, but I think there's not a systematic guarantee that that's happening at all universities, because this information and this skill is not really widespread yet. So this tool that we've made, the OGTE tool, Online Graded Text Editor, is one such tool that you can use to look at the difficulty of your entrance exam passages, or indeed the teaching materials that you're using in the classroom, whether it's a textbook or a magazine or a newspaper article you want to use for your students. This tool can help you to look at the difficulty, and if it's too difficult, it helps you to simplify it, take out the difficult words and put in more easier words. So yes, I think it's a very good point, and I just wanted to quickly respond to that.
Okay, great. Actually, we have another question. This one is for sent to me. This one is for Noda Sensei. I'll try my best to phrase this question. What is the impact of how youth communicate differently in this discussion, and has how youth communicate differently and has some impact on language analysis? So I think the question here is, how do we analyze data from the how youth communicate differently? Because basically children, kids, young people don't talk like us in Japanese, English, or probably any other language. So as they grow up, how do we analyze that data? How do we analyze that impact? Noda Sensei.
はい。言葉、コミュニケーションの仕方が、こういう状況でだいぶ変わってくるっていうことですよね。今までは直接会って、それで例えばお酒を飲みながら話していたっていうのが、こういうオンラインでとか、そういうことが非常に多くなってきますし、例えば会議でも、今日のシンポジウムもそうですけれども、画面を共有して資料を一緒に見ながらっていうような、こういうことでだいぶコミュニケーションの仕方が変わってくると思うんですよ。実際に変わってきてると思うんですが、そうするとそういう時にどういうふうにコミュニケーションを取ればいいのかっていうのが変わってきて、そのための研究、っていうのが大事になっていくだろうなと。だからそういう研究が今からどんどん増えていくのではないかなというふうに思います。それもまだこれからですけれども、皆さんの研究楽しみにしています。ありがとうございます。
Okay, actually, I'm just sharing one more thing in this file here. People are coming fast and heavy with if you have stuff to share, actually, you can just make sure that you in the chat, make sure you click to everyone so that we can all see if there's something you want to share. I'm just basically reposting a few things that people are sharing directly to me, but I think if you click everyone, everybody can see the same thing for everybody. Also, if you want to save the chat, I believe even users, anyone watching, can save the chat. There's a At the bottom of the chat on the right, hopefully in your version, there's 3 buttons. You click those 3 buttons, and the first thing at the top, it says Save Chat, and you can save the chat to your home computer. So you'll have a text of the entire chat. And it comes out as a text file, TEXT, a text file. So it's it will save directly to your computer. There is another question here for Obari sensei. Here it is.
Okay, yeah.
Obari sensei, what role does AI have in the secondary school in Japan where mostly traditional methods are used for teaching languages?
先ほどそのことについて触れたと思うんですけども、もう一回話しますか？
Okay.
どうしますか？
はい。What role does AI have in the secondary school? So like high school or junior high school, high school?
小中高ですか？
そう、中国と高校はwhat role does AI have in secondary school in Japan where mostly traditional methods are used for teaching?
はい。トラディショナルメソッドっていうのは先生が英語を教えて黒板書いたりやるっていうか、最近は随分コミュニカティブランゲージとかそういうものも流行ってんじゃないですかね。で、私ですね、今孫がいいんですけども、これ孫の今2歳ちょっとなんですけどね、最近YouTube を見せてんですね。英語の常時とかいろいろ。で、これはもうインターネットとつないでですね、YouTube テレビで見せるとですね、30分ぐらい見て、もう全然英語が分かんなくても、徐々にそのイマージンしながら見ていくわけですよね。これすごくいいなと思って、で、突然この歌い出すっていうかね、やっぱりインプットっていうのは YouTube に何でも今ある時代ですからね。それと、それはさておきましてね、これ幼児教育に役立つなと思ってるんですけど、ただ、やはり対話が大事です。それから、やっぱり AI っていうか、皆さんスマホって誰でも今持ってる時代ですから、さっき言ったようなアレクサとかですね、のスマホにダウンロードして、そしてインサイクロペディアでも何でも対話型で英語学習ってできるんですよね。語彙でも何でもね。で、あとスピーキングもできるし、で、それからAI、LINE なんかでも自分で話しかけると、それが書き出されたりですね、ドーリングとかいろんなソフトがたくさんですね。それをうまく使っていくと、かなりやっぱり自分で独特に学習するときはできると思う。で、それを中学校、小学校の先生が使い方を教えてあげると。で、やっぱりクラスルームでは、人間対人間のコミュニケーションというものを重視していくというのは大事だと思うんですよね。で、同志社中学校なんかでミニロボットっていうね、面白いちっちゃな30センチぐらいのですか、ロボットを使いながら一人一台で発音とかやってます。私もコンピューター使いながら発音教育なんかもやったんですけども、やっぱりクラスルームはね、もったいないですよ。人と人がやっぱりインタラクションするってことに時間をやっぱり使ってですね。で、クラス外で自宅とかいろんなとこで AI とか機械ってものを使って、学習するっていうかね。で、ただ問題は、その自宅で学習していることとクラスのやってることをどう結びつけるかっていうことは大事だと思うんですけど、私はとにかくインプットをたくさん入れていろんなことをチャレンジしてみると。そしてクラスの中ではアウトプット中心、こういうものをやっていったらいいんじゃないかなと思いますね。AI っていうのは必ず出てきます。本当にね、恐ろしいほど韓国なんか進んでるんですよね。だから NLP だってそうじゃないですか。ディープラーニングのディープ L っていうのを入れればね。例えば、ジョン・ドゥイの日本語の言葉を入れると、ほとんど同じに出てきますよ。95%。で、ものすごい進化です。その自然言語処理の速度っていうのはね。だから、こういう機械を使わない手はないと思いますよ。そういうことです。すいません。
I just was going to add, it's not a disagreement with what Obari Sensei is saying. I agree. I think there's great potential, especially, for lower levels, elementary school, junior high, and senior high. I think there's great potential. And I also think that there are a few schools here and there that are doing very innovative things and are doing things well. But what I've also seen, especially in 2020, in this past year, is that there were many junior high schools and many senior high schools and elementary schools as well that really struggled with online learning. And I would say the dangers, the problems of ERT, emergency remote teaching, I could see over and over again, where students had iPads at home, but it was just lecture based, and the technology was used, but not to a positive effect. I think what Obari Sensei described in his lecture, especially the many detailed and wonderful ways that we can do flipped learning online, I think those were not being done. They have not been done very well in 2020, except in a few places. So again, I think it comes back to this problem of teacher training and teacher support and planning. Moving away from ERT, emergency remote teaching, to well-planned and well-thought-out online learning. The hope was that 2021, because we have 1 year experience now, will be much more well-planned and much better in terms of pedagogy and interactiveness. But I'm already seeing signs that 2021 in some places is not going to be much better. So I'm concerned about that. And I would say also that one thing that's a positive side to this is that there are organizations in Japan, this organization, JALT Call, Computer Assisted Language Learning, OTJ, Online Teaching Japan, and several others who are working very hard to give teachers the support and the training that they're not getting from their institutions. So, I think we're still in the middle of the struggle, and there are many failures happening last year and this year, but I hope that by supporting each other and pushing each other forward, we can do better.
All right. Actually, on that note, we're going to have to close out because we're at our time here.
Oh, apologies.
No worries. Always a little more time for good discussion and good comments. So in this cyberspace that we call home regionally. So yeah, but with that, yeah, we'll close out. And if everybody, at this time, if you want to unmute your mics and give a nice round of applause to our 3 participants here, 3 speakers, Noda Sensei and Obari Sensei and Browne Sensei. Oh, looks like Obari Sensei is about to take a picture. We can give him a nice round of applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Thank you also for your patience to listen to my Japanese English. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This was a wonderful conference.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, yeah, this is the United Association for Language Studies. Yeah, this year we're online. Next year, well, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see what comes. We could be face to face with an online component, but I will make no promises about that. We all know how difficult some of these things are. But thank you everyone for coming. I will stop the recording now, and then we'll close the Zoom room. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you. Thank you for your invitation.
ありがとうございました。
ありがとうございました。
May the Lord bless you.
ありがとうございました。
Wonderful.